Okay, so we're now going to work on the markup and styles of our application. We're going to be looking at index.php and styles.css. We're going to be including our CSS files. We're also going to be including chat.js, but we're not going to be doing anything with that just yet. We'll also be going ahead and grabbing Jquery that we can use, which is a popular JavaScript library. So the first thing I want to do is forge these sessions, and what I mean is I am not logging a user in, I'm just forcing it as a demonstration in this tutorial. So let's start with some PHP code here. Let's just make that a bit larger. We're going to firstly start the session, so we're going to use the session start function to initialize sessions, and then we're going to do $_session, so we're accessing this global session variable, if you like, and we are creating an element called user. Now this can be 1, 2, 3. This will usually be what you log your user in as. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ternary operation, and I'm going to check in here if something is set. And what am I checking? $_get user. Now if that is set, I can set my session to an integer cast get variable called user. So here what I'm going to do is echo $_session user just to demonstrate this. So nothing too difficult. Let's go ahead and refresh. This is set to 0 because my ternary operator saw that nothing was set, so set it to 0. But if we go ahead and define this in here, we could say user equals 2, for example. We could say user equals 1. We could say user equals absolutely anything. So let's go ahead and return to our code. We don't need to do that now, and that's all we need to do on that PHP side of things here. So let's go ahead and start the markup. So I'm going to declare the doc type and start my HTML tags, head as well. So we can go ahead and give this a title. And let's just call this Ajax chat. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is link in my style sheet. So I'm going to say link rel is equal to something, and href equals something as well. So the rel is just going to be basically what we're including. It's a style sheet, and the href is going to be the path to it. So in this case, it's in the CSS folder, and it's styles.css. Okay, so down to our body, let's go ahead and create the markup for our actual container for the chat. And actually, let's go ahead and include our JavaScript first. So we start and end a script tag. This here is going to be our chat.js file here, which is contained within our JS directory. So that's chat.js. Now we also need to include Jquery as well. So for that we need to come over to jquery.com. We go ahead and click download Jquery. We want the production version, not the development version. Let's go ahead and close that. Over to our text editor, and we create more script tags. And we literally paste that in there. So I'm using the Jquery CDN for this, but you might want to use the Google CDN or even host it yourself. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and create the markup for the actual chat container. So I'm going to create a div with a class of chat. So this is the surrounding container. And then we're going to have a div inside of this. This is going to be empty, and it's always going to be empty in terms of what we define in here, because JavaScript or Jquery is going to help us inject the contents within here. And then we're going to have a text area here. Now the text area we need to give a class so we can target it for things like event handlers, so entry, and I'm also going to define a placeholder as well. So this is an HTML5 attribute for input fields, and this is just going to be type here and hit return, and then use shift and return for a new line. So I'm literally going to go ahead and paste that in there to save a bit of time. So let's go over to our browser and refresh, and what have we got? Well, we've got a really small, horrible looking text area here with awful font, and you can't see any of the elements that we've defined. That's because they don't have contents, but we're going to go ahead and use our style sheet to give them some nice styles. So let's head over to our style sheet and start to write our styles out. So first of all, I'm going to define an overall font size and type for the or font family for the body. So this is going to be 0.8 ems and it's going to be font Arial. So now what I'm going to do is start to target some of the elements within chat. So the first one is the messages box, if you like. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a border of 1 pixel. It's going to be a solid border, and I'm just going to give it some kind of light grey colour. I'm going to set a width of 250. Obviously this is entirely dependent on how your site looks. It could be 100% if you wanted it to scale. It all depends. So the height here I'm going to give 210 pixels. I'm going to give it a padding of 10 pixels so none of the text touches the side, and I'm also going to give it an overflow property so it scrolls only on the y-axis. So we're going to say overflow y scroll. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at this. Perfect. So we've now got this box here that we can scroll down if anything sort of comes past this, and everything's looking good. We have some padding. If we go ahead and inspect it, we can see that we've got that green area there as the padding. So let's go ahead and start now to style the entry text area. So I'm going to say .chat.entry. Now I'm going to give this a width of 260 pixels and a height of 40 pixels. Now I've given a width of 250 here and 260 here, and that's because I'm going to only give padding of 5 pixels. Now what's going to happen is the padding here is going to pad this out 20 pixels on the left and 20 pixels on the right, but here only 5 on the left and 5 on the right, so 10 in total. So this is 10 pixels larger. I'm also going to give a margin top of 5 pixels just to bring it down a bit from the container above, and I'm going to give a font of 1 EM Arial just to override the default here. So that's what it looks like. When I click in here now and start to type something, you see the placeholder is disappears. We've got our chat area here and then our text area here. Now we've still got a few things to do. We need to style what's going to happen when we actually see content within here. Now we're not going to type this in here, but we're going to do it temporarily just to see what everything looks like. Now this is going to be another div, so we're going to have divs for each message that a user types, and this is just going to have a class of message. And then inside, let's just bring this down and separate for a minute. So inside what we're going to have is we're going to have an anchor, and then we're going to have a paragraph. So the message will display here, and this will be username says, okay, and then paragraphs automatically a block display element, so it will come down here by default. So what we need to do now is start to style these bits inside of here. So let's go ahead and open up our styles.css file. So I'm going to say chat.message a, and let's go ahead and say color slate gray, and we'll say chat.message p. Now all I want to do here is reduce the margin, so I'm going to say 5 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. So when I refresh, it looks like that. So it doesn't look great, but looks better than it did originally. So all that's left to do now is just go ahead and remove our markup that we added in here temporarily. This will be created in our Ajax file. It's going to generate that for every message displayed, and that will be replaced in here. So essentially that's it. We've created our markup, our styles, and we're ready to start working on our back end and pulling these messages from the database.